Hello YouTube, I'm Aaron Losey from Lone Star Drift, and this is the owner of ECU Master USA, Zach Denny.
Hello, hello.
Hello. And today's topic, I thought it was really an interesting idea to chat about, and he's a smart, interesting guy. He's a business owner, does all kinds of neat stuff. He's a huge car nerd like us, and I wanted to talk about the runaway car prices and insanity in today's car market. So diesel trucks are literally double what they were, it feels like just a year ago. Japanese cars are absolutely insane, where a GTST Skyline that was $10,000 or $6,000, you know, 2 years ago is now worth 20, and GTRs are out of control. Like, everything's out of control. It's that way with trailers. It seems like anything car related is like that. And we're seeing a huge run up in, like, you've been selling a lot more stuff through ECU Master, right?
Sure. Yeah, we had a really strong year. Yeah, and people got locked up, couldn't go on vacation. You know, it's like everyone restarted their project, and then when, you know, Trump bucks came through, it was around the same amount as our like average order value. So if people were waiting to make a big purchase, which, you know, an ECU or a Dash, it's a big purchase. So yeah, we just had a huge couple of months with people, you know, getting kickstarted on the projects again.
Yeah, just get up a tiny bit.
Yeah,
I want to make sure I have audio. Okay, so we're in this video going to chat about what we think it was, if it's going to be a long-term trend, and just like the insanity of it. So my personal relationship with it is, I have a lot of Japanese cars. I have a diesel truck, and I'm always shopping for a new diesel truck, just like all of us, you know, like you're shopping for things. I'm always selling some of my cars, like everything's crazy. I've had probably 13 JZX 100s and 90s, and I've sold a bunch. You recently bought one.
Yeah.
He bought one for me for, you want to say the price?
Yeah. Well, wait, what? What?
It was $8,900.
Was it that little?
Yeah, $8,900 a year, not even a year ago.
Let me qualify that.
For a JZX 100 that was pretty clean.
Yeah, pretty
clean.
One
JZ turbo, everything.
So fading clear coat, automatic, headlights are all clouded. Like, it wasn't like, if someone sees like a mint body kitted out, like modded manual example, that's very different than what I bought.
I got offered $6,000 more by Adam within 10 minutes of me dropping it off.
Did you 6 more?
Yeah, he offered me 14, I think. Oh, 5 more maybe.
I thought I paid over 10 for it.
No, you paid $8,900.
Okay,
yeah. Oh, you can toss me some more money.
I mean, I do.
No,
like,
that's true. Okay, so, yeah, going back to my relationship with it, I'm always selling cars and stuff, and I'm always shopping for them. And right now, diesel trucks are crazy, Japanese cars are crazy. We all know this. Parts are crazy.
Boats are crazy.
Yeah, boats are crazy.
Yeah.
Houses are crazy. So are we seeing, like, what's the contributing factor? Is it hyperinflation? Is it just COVID bucks? Because $600 allocated to a bunch of people with no rent money cannot be doing it.
No.
People that are starving to death getting their $600 are not buying, you know, $50,000 GTRs and stuff.
Even if they're getting an extra $600 a week on unemployment, whatever, like the economics still, I think we're seeing a lot of things, honestly.
I was thinking, so let's list off the individual things that we think it is real quickly, and then we'll keep talking about this. So one thing is I see a lot of people doing mortgage deferment. So I have friends that have mortgages on their houses, and they can defer it until next year, last year.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, like
that's
12
nuts.
months. So everybody's spending their mortgage on buying stuff. That's one thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. With the boat stuff, I know. So I bought a boat early last year, just a cheap cash boat, what was cheap then, and we're talking like a 2001 ski boat. I mean, nothing super fancy because I hadn't owned a boat before. And I sold it I bought it in February, so off season, before everything hit. And then I sold it in July or August for almost exactly double what I paid for it.
What?
And
that's stupid.
Yeah, it was nuts, but everything.
That's like diesel trucks right now. You could literally go buy a new diesel truck for how much a 50 or 70,000 mile truck is.
Yeah, and I was lucky to get
crazy.
I was lucky to get any money off on my newest truck. Thankfully, like the trade value is very high. But like my last truck was a 1500 Ram, and they gave me like something stupid like $12,000 or $14,000 off sticker price. And looking at a new diesel truck, most dealerships will laugh at you if you ask for a discount and say, you know, like supply is short because they had part shortages, labor shortages, everything was shut down, and demand went up. But like, yeah, I mean, I got like a few thousand off, but not, you know, 12 or 14,000. Okay. The prices are nuts.
The next thing I would say is people can finance a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You can finance a JZX 100. My friend Trenton from Y Plate Imports says that, you know, like his customers finance cars. They do have to be stateside and stuff, but you're probably dealing with very low interest rates on, I actually don't know the interest rates. I probably shouldn't say that. But like say, buying a house. I just bought a condo and it was 2.7% interest. That's insanity. Like completely insane. Inflation sometimes is more than that.
My parents bought a house in the early 80s, and my granddad had a lot of investments, and so he was making less than double-digit returns on his investments. There was hyperinflation at the time, and they were quoted like 12 and 14% interest rates or something on a house. Imagine a $100,000 house. You owe them 12 or 14 grand, so $1,000 a month before you even cover property tax or any principal. So he ended up offering them, like he mortgaged the house for them out of his own money because it was a better return than the market. It was a lower rate for them. But now, yeah, like 2%, 2.5%. I mean, it's stupid.
So that's another reason. Guys, I would love it if you guys would put in the comments the things that you think as well, because I actually want to read this stuff because I'm really interested in the subject. Okay, you just said, were you just repeating a story off of me, or did you give me one?
I didn't give you much. So
okay, give me another reason.
I think separately, so we've got, boats. I think a lot of that was people could do that with their family, right? It was like one of the few activities they could still do. They couldn't go on vacation.
Oh, because you're social distancing.
Right, but with your family on your own boat, you can have a whole group together. So
yeah,
I think a lot of off-road stuff, side-by-sides, and RVs went through the roof because people could go use those while still not having, having travel restrictions elsewhere. So I think that's separate. I think domestic prices for interesting cars is separate from Japanese prices. I think we
did muscle cars like fire up?
Yeah. So I sold a Hellcat. I've had 2 Hellcat Chargers. I sold one last year.
You're really having a tough time during COVID. I'm sorry. You had to sell 2 of your Hellcats.
No. I sold one that when things first hit. I was like, I have too many cars. I need to liquidate a little bit just because we didn't know how it was going to play out.
I sold some too. I was like,
I didn't know how it was going to play out.
Mine was an S14.
Right, and back then, like a nice Hellcat Charger, like a 16 in good condition, was selling for like low 40s.
They're worth more now,
car for the money. Yeah, so I bought a newer one now, but that same car would have gone up like $6,000 or $7,000 in the span of 7 or 8 months.
So we're getting to your reason, I guess. I'll jump into. Is it because it's like a resurgence of like muscle car where the boomers were buying their childhood and they wanted that, so they were putting tons of money into it. Are the boomers buying those? Or who's buying those? Is it younger people?
I think there's kind of a difference because to me, like a Hellcat's kind of like run of the mill. There's a lot of them, right? You see them almost everywhere. They're not going to be collector cars, I don't think, unless you're talking about like a very special like Demon or Red Eye, like whatever ones. But Viper values went nuts. So I bought my ACR. Vipers have always been my dream car since I was like 8. In fact, I've got a framed drawing of a Viper that I made when I was like 9 or 10 years old that my mom framed for me for a gift recently. And I bought an ACR because it was, 1, a phenomenal deal. It was the cheapest one I'd seen listed, and 2, it was like their actual press car. So it's featured in Motor Trend and everything. The value of that car, I did buy it really cheap, but that car, I could sell it for about $70,000 more than I paid for it right now.
What?
And even if I bought one at like regular market value, it would have gone up $40,000 or $50,000 in the past year and a half.
So this is insanity. Who's buying these things and why? For imports, I would say, like, to toss out another reason, it's because you had a good point earlier, the Fast and Furious generation and everything. We are just like the boomers now. There's kids that grew up during all this import stuff, and they can now buy their childhood dream cars that they had posters on the walls for and everything. They now can spend whatever amount they want to do it.
Yeah, like Mark IV Super
Is that
values.
what's happening?
I mean, Mark IV Super values for a good while. You could buy a clean twin turbo 6-speed car for low 20s, maybe even high teens if you got a really smoking deal. Now you cannot touch a original turbo 6-speed Super in decent shape for less than 55 or 60. Right? I mean, that's tripled since probably 2006 or 7. But yeah, I think you look at any car value, like even square body Chevy trucks are getting hot now.
I don't understand that at all. Like the C10s.
I like them.
Right, but I like them as a joke, and you just like want to drive around your farm truck. I don't want one as a joke for $35,000. Not
for 35. Yeah, I'm out at 35. But I think like, well, you can basically map out like honestly, 30 years on top of any car, right? The value skyrocket because the people couldn't afford it when they were new.
Right.
Then have careers and money. And I think we're seeing that, and also stuff's able to be imported now, right? Because we got in Canada, we saw this earlier because they've got a 15-year rule, but in the U.S. at 25 years. I mean, we're just now getting we're into R33s now. Supras, right-hand drive Supras are now available. FDs, right-hand drives are available. Just getting into the JZX 90s and 100s haven't hit yet, soon. But yeah, like we couldn't get this stuff previously.
I think somebody told me that I think New Zealand and maybe Brazil or something, I forget which countries, but 2 countries just changed their laws and they're now opening up and competing directly for the same cars we are. So it's not just the American market, it's like 3 different markets. If somebody knows that, drop the 2 countries and I'm asking for stuff. I never do this.
Yeah. What else? So yeah, I think the Japanese stuff is separate because we hit 25 years. Yeah. It's been 30 years since they were new, and you can predictably map that out. I think the domestic stuff, like Viper values, I think that those are unique in particular because you're not going to get, it's just like the current crop of McLarens, that like they're going to move to hybrids and smaller motors. I think like a 765 LT is a good buy, right? Even though it's 300.
What is a 765 LT?
It's the newest McLaren. It'll run a 940 in the quarter mile on stock tires.
Oh, it's not as fast as a new Tesla.
Not quite. Not quite. Makes better noises, thank God. But no, but I think they're gonna stand alone. Like it's the last like peak internal combustion for McLaren at least, because the next ones are gonna be V6 hybrids, which sound like
sounds like a Raptor.
Probably. Yeah. I can't do that. But yeah, I think you're gonna see cars that are kind of like the last of, you know, like the Vipers especially, giant motor, H pattern rear wheel drive. And anything with a Hellcat motor is probably going to go up, right? The 1-year SRT Durango Hellcat is going to be hilarious because it's they made a Durango with a Hellcat motor.
That sounds awful.
And then you have the TRX, with the Ram Rebel TRX. So it's like you can't get them for below retail now. A lot of people are charging like 10 or 15 over sticker. Yeah. But I think the domestic stuff, especially, like it's kind of like the last time you can buy this stuff. Electric stuff's finally getting exciting. Yeah. As a luxury item, not terribly practical for everybody, but. Yeah, I think this is going to be a unique spot, and that, like, you know, it's like the Plymouth Superbird of the past, I think, is what the ACR is now.
What I'm really surprised about is a lot of these cars, it's also happening with like old M cars. E36s are crazy expensive. 325 E36s are expensive. Really? Like some of this, yes, like they used to be $500. Now they're like $6,000 for like one that runs. That's not terrible. When like, but I also don't know if all these cars are selling at these prices we're seeing.
Can't you get a beat to hell E92 for that?
Yes, E92s are crazy cheap. You can get them for like $1,500 for like.
It's the nostalgia, like Radwood. Are you familiar with Radwood? Yeah, yeah, it's a cool like movement, and a lot of, and again, like.
But there's a lot of these cars out there. Yeah. So Mark III, you were a Mark III Super owner. How much did you buy your Mark III Super for?
$2,700, and I found $540 rolled up in 20s underneath the console that somebody had stuck there.
Because it was a drug car?
Yeah, because somebody got arrested and the car went to auction. So I paid like just under $2,200 for it.
So now, Trenton and some of the guys that are showing me cars rolling through auction, there was, I'm sure you've seen it, there was somebody who spent $38,000 on like a really clean Mark III Super in Japan.
I believe it.
Like $45,000 for a
depending on like
JZX 100.
What trim and year, like what miles are on it, what color. Yeah, I could drive that up.
I honestly have driven Mark III Supers when they were still a little bit newer in good shape. I didn't want them for $3,000 back then. I couldn't imagine.
They're so mushy. They're fun once you build them, but like they're so mushy stuck. So it's not an S chassis. Like you don't flick them. They're not fun and light. Like I like them as like nice GT cars that you can make big power with. But yeah, it's nostalgia. It's not the value of the car. It's the value of the nostalgia and memories attached.
But there's that many people out there blowing this much money, especially in the middle of like a pandemic, where you would think that at the beginning of the pandemic, just like you, I liquidated some cars. I was like, so you would think the car values would tank because people would be getting rid of them. But it's the exact opposite. People are going crazy. And then with your own business, you're way up this year probably. Yeah, all the companies I deal with. Kenda was way up, you know, like BC Racing was way up. All these companies are selling way, way more stuff. It's mind-blowing. I can't believe it.
Because we're in this industry. But you look at travel, entertainment, restaurants.
I didn't think that's a good point.
All those tank. It's a shift.
All those are shifting to us. That's crazy.
That's it's just like boats and off-road stuff. Like you can do that during a pandemic. You cannot go
that's a really
on
good
your
point.
Exotifications. You can't. There's a lot of things you can't do, but the things that are left, people kind of double down. How many people,
this was a good conversation because I didn't think about the shifting from other industries. Yes. So we're absorbing billion-dollar industries into race car stuff. And not only that, the burning of like money on dumb cars like E39 M5s, which I had one back when they were new. And it was a good car, but like...
You don't harbor the same nostalgia for it as most people.
Well, no, I'm trying to say like, if you just bought a 2015 15 like 530i with like an M Sport package suspension or something, it's a better car.
In every metric.
Yeah, in every way it's a better car. But like Motor Trend tells you like, oh, the E39 had better steering. You're like, that thing was, what do you call it? It had a steering box like a pickup truck. You're like,
really?
Yeah, you're like, they're not that great like that. You're just like, they were sold as hero cars to our generation, and
Okay,
we ate that.
Which hero cars have you owned and hated? Because I've owned a few that I
owned a second gen Viper. I hated it. It was like owning a Walmart car, like a car built by Walmart.
Gen 2 Vipers are not fun to drive and own.
People that would approach me, it was awful. I was embarrassed driving the car around. It got 8 miles to the gallon. You couldn't see out of it.
Yeah.
It had gigantic, expensive tires. It wasn't fun to drive. It wasn't pleasant.
Did you burn your leg on it?
No, I didn't have side pipes. It was downhill because yeah, mine was.
So you burned the right side of your foot.
Yeah, on the transmission tunnel.
Yeah.
They were incredibly poorly made cars. So I had that at the same time as I had a lot of other cars, and I ended up driving my new 350Z all the time, and I loved that car because it was joyful, and I didn't worry about hurting it. Where I did worry about like a $10,000 hood on a Viper is very stressful.
Yeah, a lot of those cars were totaled because the hood cost more than half the value of the car for a lot of their life, right? Once they depreciate a little bit, a $15,000 or $20,000 hood would total a car.
I had an Evo 8 when they were brand new in 2003. I liked the car, but I just didn't drive it. It was one of those hero cars that you're just like, it made me feel like I was in a Civic and all this stuff, and I was trying to do a lot of miles, and I modified mine a little bit, so like it was too loud on the inside because it had no sound deadening. Right. And so you're just like, eh. I had an E39 M5, I had an E34 M5. The E34 M5 people absolutely love, but they're slow. They make no torque.
Right.
I had a dozen E36s. I almost bought an E30 M3, which was like one of my hero cars for doing DT and stuff.
On that.
Right, but I drove it. The person's like, $5,000, you can have my E30 M3 because they needed money. They let me borrow it for a day, and I brought it back, and I was like, man, this isn't for me. I was like, my E36 M3 is a 10-time better car than the E30. Yeah. And that's saying a lot. Like, the E30 looked cool, and then you drive it and you're like, this thing sucks. S2000, I borrowed one of those for a day. I hated it. So I didn't own that. I've had probably about 150 cars.
I don't know how many I've had. I don't know if I've crested 100 yet. Probably pretty close.
I mean, I've had a lot of the exact same car. I've had 4 R33 Skylines, like 4 R32 Skylines, 13 JZX,
I've only
40 S13s.
I've only had a little seat time in an R32 GTR, and it was like a worse 1JZ because it made no power, and it had a small single on it, so it wasn't stock. Actually, maybe it was on stock turbos. Anyway, it was bad. Like no mid-range power. Like you really had to beat the crap out of it. It was S13 quality interior, which is not good, and the 5-speed trans, like, I'm just not a big fan. Like, it was just for what they command now, especially. I wouldn't touch one. What else? I'm trying to like think what's great and what's bad. Like, I really like. I separate
the cars into like multiple fields. Like, I've had FDRX7s, FCRX7s. I've never had an FB. I separate like things into like E36s are great because they're reliable and fun and all those things. But then there's a lot of cars like the GTRs. They're too expensive to fix. And they're not reliable.
And complicated
and
heavy.
And, so like, it's a car that I had one recently, and I sold it to a friend because I wasn't enjoying it, but I was also terrified, like, like a ticking time bomb. You're like, oh man, if this breaks, GTR motors are like $7 or $8 grand.
Right.
And that's for a used piece
and finding
of
somebody
motor.
competent to rebuild it locally that's going to do a good job and replace all the little crusty hoses you're going to break on the way in and out.
Yeah. And you can't get all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm
Whereas you can get E36 stuff because they made enough of them.
So what's the hero car that you actually really enjoyed, and what's the one you liked the least? So the Gen 2 Viper you disliked quite a bit, right? Is that
I would have liked the Gen 3 Viper. Gen 2 Viper if I had long tubes on it and cool wheels. And like, if I was in the mindset of like, this is a joke car, like an S13.
Yeah.
The problem is I didn't. It was like, you took your hero home and you're like, this isn't great. But it was because I had built the car up. If I had just thought about it as like, put a cam in it and like long tubes and like wheels, like I said, and like made it my own, I think I would have enjoyed it. Yeah. Because it would have been a joke. It would have been like driving a Shelby Cobra around on the street kind of thing.
I need to let you drive my ACR because...
that's worth too much money. I'll drive the non-ACR.
Okay. Yeah. But like, that was a hero car for me that like really lived up, the Gen 5 particularly, because the Gen 2 I had one as a roller, and the quality is not great, and it's very quirky. Like, requires you to live with the car. Gen 5, yeah, visibility is still like, you got the giant hood ahead of you. All the windows are tiny. Like, it's not great. But...
I didn't feel comfortable driving it hard because of the length of the hood, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I felt like I'd hit stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, with an S chassis or something else, I can place it,
yeah.
and like I'm on people's doors and I'm tandeming, and I can like fold my mirrors in on somebody's car in tandem kind of thing. The Gen 5 or Gen 2 Viper, I felt like I was just going to run into like the garage pulling in. Like, I did not feel comfortable.
No, the Gen 5 I got comfortable in pretty quickly, but also the ACR is a giant splitter. It's like, even if you hit a pothole or like scrape the nose, it's a 1/2 inch of sacrificial plastic. Like, I don't stress about it as much. The brakes are phenomenal though. The steering's phenomenal.
So that's your favorite car?
Right now, it's up there. I think favorite all around.
What's your worst car?
I'm going to catch some crap from some people for saying this. I really don't like my FD.
FDRX7?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I had one of those. That was actually...
It's great on track. Super well balanced.
My FDRX7 was probably my worst car.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm 6'2", and it was painful. Yeah. Like, everybody's telling you, that's the coolest car. You drive that. I would drive it around, just like, get out, and you're like, oh, my God.
Like, honestly, I'd rather have... In terms of, like, the way it fits me, I'd be way happier in, like, an NA or NB Miata. Because there's more distance between the steering wheel and the seat. And somehow more leg room and more headroom.
Yeah.
The
I would drive the FD and like my legs would be like this.
If I were like 5'9", I think the FD would be a much better car for me. But you can't tilt the wheel even, right? You know, I'm used to my Supra. It was my first car, and you could tilt and telescope it. You had like 10-way power seat from a 1990 vehicle, which is insane. Yeah. Also why it weighed 12,000 pounds.
I was going to say that's why it weighs so much more too.
And all the interior plastics on the FD creak and rattle and squeak, and I'm terrified to drive it because if I break something on it, getting a new OEM part is such a hassle. Like, I don't want to touch it.
It's a masochist car. Like,
yeah, a little bit.
It's just, you hate yourself driving it.
And like, it's such a weird...
They're beautiful.
And they're worth too much money now. That's why I want to get rid of mine, because it's worth way more than what I like have into it.
Two of my favorite cars. I love my S chassis, like race cars. I love that kind of stuff. I love that Corvette I had. Yeah. The car that made me feel the happiest probably when I street drove it, I was very proud of it. I bought like an almost brand new E39 M5. Like a 2003, I think. I don't remember. And it was like the exact color combination, all these things. I love driving that around. I drifted around a little bit and stuff and enjoyed it, but like, it was really nice car, almost brand new. And it gave me a lot of those feelings. In today's mind, like, it's not that great of a car, but back then it was, I really enjoyed it, and it made me, you know, have that feeling of like being proud and all that stuff.
I felt the same way about my ISF, like one of the best cars I've ever owned. Like, total ownership experience. Yes, the Viper's more exciting, but no, I don't want to drive the Viper every day. Right? But the ISF was fantastic because nobody looked twice. People who knew it, but they're so subtle compared to everything else on the road that motor sounded phenomenal. Like, the downshift blips were great. The trans programming was fantastic. I had the year with the limited slip diff, so you could, you know, slide around. It was very comfortable, good seats, and like, great all-around car. I do love my Hellcat Charger in a very different way. It's way more of a sledgehammer versus like...
It's like goofy.
It's hilarious. Like, I cannot believe they don't have a class action lawsuit from selling those cars on 275 P0s.
Because they make so much power.
It's stupid. I could blow the tires off at 70 on the stock tires. Like, it was absolutely comically stupid. I think my longest... Like, keeping the tires spinning from a stop with traction control, I think I got through like 5th gear. Man. Just for giggles, I was like, I'm just going to stay in it and see how long it goes before it actually catches, and it doesn't catch.
What's the most impressive car that you've driven recently? Man, we're getting way off topic. All right, 30 seconds, we're back on topic.
Right. Go. Most impressive I've driven recently? I haven't driven anything that I don't own recently.
Model 3 dual motor car for me.
Oh, yeah, but that was cool.
They are so good. They have some like little problems and stuff, and I understand some people don't like electric cars, but like True's M3, we raced on the access road from a stop and stuff, 10 car lengths. I mean, like, I'm calling him on the phone, like, we're talking. He has a 500-something wheel, like, M3, like, 10 car lengths. It just, like, wee, like, little Jetson noise, wee, and just, like, takes off. It's gone.
Yeah.
It is so fast in real life. Because, and then True's like, oh, well, let's race from 70. You're like, yeah, but, like, we have to race to, like, 140 or whatever then. Like, that's not how you drive a car all the time. Right. We normally drive a car just, like, stoplight to the next stoplight, whatever. And the car is so ridiculously fast from stoplight to stoplight and effortless.
Yeah.
And like, no one looks at you, and it doesn't sound like a race car.
I've been really tempted to like get rid of the Hellcat and put a deposit. Well, I don't have to get rid of it yet, but like put a deposit down on the Plaid Plus
It is going to be like wide body and all that stuff. We were talking about that the other day. It does have a diffuser in wide body.
Okay.
The picture doesn't show it.
Got it. Because we're looking at the website, like I want to know if it had steel or carbon brakes. Like there were no details offered on the website.
Yeah. But it's going to have a normal steering wheel too, supposedly.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got 2 or 3 friends who put deposits down. And I'm like, I kind of want to do it just for like the giggle factor.
I just want to drive it.
Yeah. But let's say like I love the Hellcat Charger, but it's a daily, but it's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Right? Because like who needs a daily that gets like 12?
8 miles a gallon.
Yeah, like, yeah, 12 is ambitious. And
okay.
Tire mileage is, not.
We got to get back on topic. So what are the other reasons, sorry guys that we did that, but, so what are the specific reasons that car values and everything is going crazy right now? And is it going to tank on the other side?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect storm where interest rates are super low.
Yeah.
Shortage of manufacturing.
Yeah.
So used car shortage, huge shortage this last year, right? Because they stopped making cars. So new and used shortage, inventories went way, way, way down. What else? A lot of people's incomes went up. Sadly, because we're just borrowing against tomorrow. A lot of people got an extra hundreds of dollars a week on unemployment, especially, or
maybe people are just bored sitting at home.
I think so, and I think like once we weathered the initial storm, a lot of people got confident, and maybe they were waiting to make a big purchase, and it was kind of like a gold rush and people buying stuff. But
it still doesn't make sense for all the E36s and all that odd stuff, though. I feel like it's like 10 different things.
Yeah.
So you have the new truck prices making the old trucks and emissions at the same time. Like that's an emissions story.
Well, I think
it's reliability of newer trucks not being as good as the older ones and mile per gallon, all these different things. And then like the 25-year rule, maybe it's just like 15 different things.
But I think all the $1,000 cars went up by at least 1,000 because people got stimulus bucks.
You say that, but like, dude, for all the cars which aren't collectible or like something that you want for a nostalgic reason, like a 528i BMW is the best deal on earth right now. Okay. They're $60,000 cars, and you can buy them for $6,000 for like a 2011.
Okay.
They're amazing cars for like that price. Mine's been amazing. I love it. I mean, like I was going to buy more as a joke and just have more. I mean, because realistically, if you can put 50,000 miles on a car and
for
lose
$6 grand, and it's still worth
not even
2 or 3 when you're done or whatever.
Yeah. So I was going to say like, there's so much stuff people are sitting on, probably SUVs and like normal cars, 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series. Yeah, 7 Series. You can buy a freaking like 7 Series twin turbo V8 that might have problems, but there's an M Sport that makes 500 horsepower or whatever for like $6 grand. Might only last 6 months, but if it runs well when you get it.
I remember I almost purchased.
It's crazy.
Yeah, one of the twin turbo V12 Mercedes from the early 2000s. And those, like with a tune only, they'll make like
800 foot-pounds of torque or something.
Right, but the problem is the tune costs as much as the car. Because it's like a $3,000 car or $3,500 car, and then a tune is like another $3,000, $3,500.
How much is a boost controller? You're like, the car doesn't let you.
Yeah, probably lock you down. But my thing was like, if the rest of the car falls apart around it, I can still stuff it into something as a joke or sell the motor by itself for $1 or $2 grand or whatever. But but you see that like there's some stuff where like there's low enough risk you could part it out and make your $5 or $6 grand back if something blows up. But some of it doesn't make sense when there's much better modern options, but no, people don't have nostalgia for something 10 years old.
Do you think that cars? So the government in California and I think Maryland and a few other places in China, probably in other countries. They were saying something about it like in America, but they're going to try and start banning fossil fuel cars by 2030. I don't see how that's possible, but if they do it, I was talking to Wout, one of my friends in Amsterdam, and he says they're constantly banning from like inside the city center different Euro level emissions cars.
They already do that. I think in Paris that they would alternate where if your name started with like A through H,
you can't drive in the
city.
city.
Could drive like every other day of the week, and then the other half of the alphabet the other day of the week. And I think they might have banned diesels from the city on certain days, depending on like how the pollution looks. But there are already some measures like that in place. But
is that going to? First of all, I would think that just used car prices for gas cars that are non-nostalgic will just go to zero, and like they'll just crush them basically because people won't want them. Or they'll dismantle them, or whatever they're going to do.
We may see a cash for clunkers type deal where they'll like give you a big subsidy on a new electric vehicle for crushing an old gas one. Yeah, I could see that happening absolutely because they did cash for clunkers already years ago.
Once all that stuff starts, I could see it going really fast where all of the electric cars. I don't know, because like a lot of people might hold on to their gas cars, but if electric cars get cheap enough, which they might. And it's cheap enough to refill them because over time, all commodities get cheaper. That's like an economic theory. But all commodities get cheaper over time. Regardless of you think that they won't, they still end up doing it. Natural resources get cheaper over time. Right. Electricity gets cheaper over time.
Problem is that we have like a generational jump in infrastructure ahead required to add enough charging capacity for the vehicles that we have. And I know people say, oh, at night you don't use as much electricity.
Just say they figure that out. We're not looking at all the problems.
Okay.
What happens to gasoline cars? Because like if we see this much of a ramp up, we could see just a complete dive within just a few years or 5 years.
There's a lot of problems because think about the trucking industry, heavy trucking.
Right. We're not talking about them. We're just talking about small cars.
I think it's all interconnected, right? If you don't have a solution for everybody in the spectrum, the infrastructure is still going to be around for gas and diesel.
Electric cars, by the way, for 2020, I think we're like 4.8% of the entire market for new car sales. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're coming on strong because of tax reasons and everything else.
But it's a luxury item, not a commodity at this point. We haven't made that transition. I don't know how long that takes.
Right, but we're really close.
Right.
I don't know how close.
And that's the thing.
It could be 5 years, it could be 1 year, it could be whatever. But we're still close, especially if they force the companies. Right now, all the car companies have to pay emissions credits to Tesla to make cars. Right. So we're going to see a very quick shift. And like, you've driven fast electric cars?
I've not driven an electric car, period.
They're
I've got a golf cart.
So much faster to like say 80 than a normal car.
You're not waiting for a power band. You're not waiting for a gearbox, right? It is just direct translation of.
It's so fast. It's crazy. So as someone that's driven them a decent amount, they're comically good. You cannot like them because of sound or whatever reason, or you hate, electric cars, whatever. They are really good.
Right. And I think that this may be the golden age of
gas stuff.
Yeah, I think it may be like the second muscle car era. The first muscle car era, they were staring down smog, which neutered everything. Everything was really bad for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But this time it's not just neutering it, it's converting it over to electric. Whereas like, an electric car is great, but it doesn't instill, like, they're not particularly beautiful. They're not engaging to drive because you're not doing anything.
They're beautiful. Not the S, but I really like the 3. It's aerodynamic. It just looks like it is meant to work.
But it doesn't make any noises. You don't shift gears.
Tell me more. I love this stuff. I don't want to shift gears.
Well, it's the thing. Like I think that it may be the same deal as there's still huge money in horses, right?
Yeah.
People don't use them to haul goods to and from the market, right? So I think we're going to see cars that gas cars stick around forever. Eventually, I think we will phase out once technology gets good enough. But like arguing about the timeline, I don't know. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, right?
Because there's a lot of people spending real money on like R34 GTRs, $450,000 or whatever. I've heard tossed around in different like metrics in that or numbers, whatever. I can't muscle cars definitely dived off. Can we agree about that? Like half a decade ago or something, whenever it was, maybe a decade ago.
They're eventually
their prices dropped drastically unless it was like a very special car.
Well, and once all the people that had like high school emotions tied to them died. The values
no one cares.
Yeah, it's going to go down. I mean, hot rods are great, but the prices have gone up with their retirement accounts.
Yeah.
So once all those dudes are too old to go to car shows and wear their New Balances every weekend, the prices had to go down because their kids may not want them or care about maintaining them. So I think we'll see the prices stay strong for our generation stuff for a very long time, right? Probably continue to go up because there'll be novelties and, status things or just, tokens of the past. But muscle car stuff from the 70s, I mean, I'd love to have a Hemi Cuda, absolutely. Am I going to pay $150,000 for it? Absolutely not. I can get an ACR for that. It's a much better car in every aspect.
There's a lot of cars too that I just don't think are collectible enough. Or they have too great of maintenance or things like that. Like say a 2015 M5. They are depreciation nightmares. An E39 good condition M5 at the same mileage is now worth more than an F10 M5. We're getting to the era too where cars are no longer fixable.
Right. And so you want to talk about like the McLaren 765, like being kind of the last of the best generation of completely gas supercars. The problem is they're unreliable pretty much from new. How do you maintain a McLaren that's 30 years old that has proprietary tech in it and like a bespoke gearbox and like there are no parts available unless you just buy a bunch of wrecked ones and part them out and hope that the components don't fail more than once?
This is a weird thing that's directly about that. This is a side note. Sorry, everybody. I was watching a video. I think it was on the Vin Wiki page, which I got to sit and watch one of those videos while Fielding was doing his. So kind of funny aside. Anyways. On the old McLaren F1s, the parts timed out. So like even your clutch, your tires, your brakes, your fuel tank.
Yeah, they're not going to make more tires.
Well, no.
They age out.
They age out. Yeah. So like after say 3 years or something or 5 years, your fuel tank is no longer serviceable by them, and you have to put a new in. Yep. And like all the parts in the car like that. So even if you don't drive it a mile, the car could have $200,000 of maintenance.
Right.
So like even those very collectible cars aren't worth profit most of the time, probably by the time you like maintain them long term. Right. Unless it's an E36, because they last forever. I don't know. Sorry, we're getting sidetracked on this. Well, let's finish up.
Yeah.
Do you have any extra thoughts about it? I think the first 7 minutes were really good.
With us we went off the rails a little bit. It's been some unique things. I think the Japanese stuff will continue to go up. I think a lot of the better late model domestic stuff, the last of the non-hybrid domestic stuff, I think it's going to go up because it's again like the pre-smog muscle cars. I think they're unique enough. Like who the heck needs a 700 plus horsepower SUV? But we have them. Like gas power, big supercharger. Like they're ignorant, and I think that they'll kind of stand alone in time as this weird bubble.
Yeah,
and they'll be collectible because of that.
That's so far off my radar. Keep going.
What's funny? I mean, they just stuffed that motor in everything.
Yeah,
like everything they made that could fit that motor, they did. But a lot of stuff is really like a lot of the reason the prices have gone up on it is because they are very good for what they are. But yeah, as we see the new tech come in, we'll see what happens to it. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff has gone up, some for better reasons than others. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
I don't think the cars are worth what they're going for. I think the trucks are embarrassing how much they're being listed for. I don't know if all this stuff is actually selling for these prices. I don't know if people are just fishing. I don't know if it's just some weird thing that's going on. I do know a lot of the specialty stuff is really selling for that much, but I don't know if like say a 2010 F250 is really going for $30,000. Like that is literally, I mean like that truck was probably in that time frame a $50,000 truck, and now with 200,000 miles and all this stuff, they're asking 30. Like that stuff is all just stupid to me, and I don't know if it's real, and I don't know if like we're just in some weird troll culture of like used vehicles.
I mean, the auction values have supported. I saw again, like market price for an ACR Viper is
That's different. 162. That's a limited edition thing.
Okay.
I'm talking about all the other stuff that's getting sold, like diesel trucks, E36 328s or 325s that aren't M cars. I was gonna say, if it's a limited production thing, I can see the values going up and I can see them not dropping off drastically.
Right.
I can see you tell me a story about modern trucks because they have emissions problems and all these different things, that the older ones are more reliable and they're, whatever.
Well, the new prices have gone up so much that I think that's driven the used prices up with them, right? That they've stayed flat because the new prices are so unattainable for most people.
I think that there's so many different factors. I don't know. And I was talking with Trenton in one of the videos saying, I made another video too about how you can own all your dream cars. I should link to that here, but I never do that properly. You can own all your dream cars because even if you buy a GTR for 30 grand and the price is going up, you're probably not going to lose money on it as long as you don't crack a windshield and like destroy the individual like unique parts.
Right.
So maybe you shouldn't do something too unique that only has Japanese parts that you can't get. Focus on things like E36 M3s or focus on things that you can actually maintain and find like a happy balance there. But I think that even with rising prices, as long as they don't drop off hard, maybe an E36 M3 for 10 grand still isn't a bad deal if it's a decent car, because you're still not going to lose money on it. Whereas a new M3 in the first 2 years loses $40,000 of its value, and it's insanity.
Yeah.
So if you can enjoy older stuff, it's still a great time period to buy these things, enjoy them, maintain them properly. The E36s, the parts to fix them haven't gone up.
No.
They're crazy cheap still for the most part.
Or if you do buy something that's 3 years depreciated, like a new M3, buy one that's 3 years old, keep it for a year and then resell it.
Yeah.
And if you buy it right and sell it right, you're not going to spend much of anything, right? If you catch that dip in depreciation curve.
So maybe if we properly think through what we buy and how to enjoy it as street cars, we can do that. For myself, I put too many miles. I put like 60,000 miles in the last 2 years on my daily.
Jeez.
it's better for me to buy a more modern car that's a depreciation nightmare that's still really reliable and comfortable and all these things, because I don't need to put 60,000 miles every 2 years on a E36 M3.
Well, how much maintenance would that be on a car?
Right, it would be a lot of maintenance on something that old. And if you push an E36 M3 to 350,000 miles, it's probably not going to be worth anything anyways, because no one's going to want to touch it, because it no longer is in that specific usable thing. I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing on all this stuff, like how to take advantage of, you're taking advantage of buying unique cars and holding them, and you got lucky on some because of pre-COVID, and then you go up. And I still lose tons of money on cars.
And I'm not necessarily looking at these cars as investments per se, but a lot of, like, I buy what's interesting to me.
You kind of have to look at them as investments sometimes. If you're going to have 14 cars and you don't want to lose your butt on them, you do need to make sure that you're not in depreciation nightmares like buying a brand new Ferrari.
I never overpay. And the only vehicle I've purchased new in the past couple of years, I bought 2 new trucks. Yeah. Right. This one and the one before it, because I just use them as work vehicles. They pull trailers and do work, and like,
you don't want to break down in something. Trucks are mess with it.
Yeah, trucks are straight line depreciation. There's no sweet spot to buy a truck. You may as well just get it new off the lot rather than wait 3 years and pay. It's, again, you don't. There's no. I
bought a fleet truck to get away from that.
Right, and that's saying you have to buy like a
my truck after 150,000 miles in 5 years is worth more now because of COVID. I'm not joking, because it's a diesel truck like the 2011 T. It is worth more now with another 100 and something thousand miles on it than it was when I bought it, which is just like boom.
I put like pretty much 40,000 miles on my last truck, and it cost me, I think, $4 or $5 grand.
Yeah. Typically, trucks too cost more in fuel than the price of the truck if you drive it for like 200,000 miles, even new.
Right.
Or at least it was when diesel trucks were a little bit older, or sorry, cheaper, because my first 2 loaded diesel trucks, brand new, were 36 and like 45.
Okay.
That was completely loaded, and now just they've gone crazy.
It's about twice that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Literally.
Okay, so think things through. You can still buy cool stuff, even on the upward swing of everything. I think we will see a downward swing, but we'll see it in items which are not super unique. So maybe just like a normal R32 GTR will drop off in price maybe in 5 years or something like that. I could see them starting to come down because there are a lot of them still.
Yeah.
They built like 55,000 of those things or something like that. That's a lot of cars.
Especially if it's, and we're seeing...
But if it's a special color or special item...
We're seeing rougher cars come in, right? If you buy a rough example, don't expect it to be worth a ton.
Right, but people are willing to put a lot of money into cleaning them up now.
Right.
The one thing that I see, one last thing. Be careful as you modify cars, because they're going to be worth less and you're going to ruin them. I'm someone that's constantly ruined cars, putting parts on them and doing things. These cars really just need thoughtful, nice upgrades and maintenance. Do not just throw everything out on the car. Do not willy-nilly modify the thing, because it's going to be a piece of junk when you're done.
I feel like you're attacking me with the JZX.
No, because you're not worried about it. That's a race car. That's completely different. But I see like there's an R32 in the back here with a Turbonetics turbo on it, and like just a bunch of really badly spray painted parts and things like that. And each time they modify the car is going down in reliability, down in marketability, down in value.
Whereas if they spend that money on like a brand new factory engine harness and all new rubber hoses and like real like restoration parts, that would pay dividends, whereas like stuff that I would want to undo to make a car mine after I buy it.
And then would enjoy the car more too with nice parts, because those other things like, bleh.
Yeah, just don't mess it up.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please comment on this. I know this is an odd format. It's longer. It's just on the front of an iPhone. I just wanted to talk to Zach because he's coming over here and buying a new race car for himself.
Your old one. This is 2 of your old cars I've owned now.
Yeah. It's gonna be more than that soon. I hope. Let me go get some for you. He is the owner of ECU Master USA. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we're obviously in business. We're selling ECU's dashes. We're growing like crazy, and lots of big things on the horizon. So hit us up for all your needs.
Cool. Something just off the top of my head kind of thing about Zach. He's in the car industry. He has race cars. He helps us out with Lone Star Drift. He actually is a driver in my series and in my events. So it's super cool to have sponsors and, people in the car community that own businesses and stuff as a part of everything. They support drivers. They support the events. He's coming on Drift Week 3. He supports Adam LZ. He supports the creation of media and the creation of all this stuff in our community. So I want to say thank you very much to him. It's really cool to have people like that involved in the community. And I love having long-standing relationships with these partners and stuff that allow us to do so much cool stuff. Like I could not do Drift Week without help from guys like this. just the metrics of Drift Week are insane because I'm hosting events outside my comfort zone of like my area where I have to fly the crew out or, you know, drop, like all the expenses just get enormous. So to do really specialty projects like that is difficult. So I just want to say thank you to him. I want to say thank you to all of our Patreon people over at Lone Star, or patreon.com/LoneStarDrift. Thank you to all you guys helping out. You're feeding Cy. All that money just goes straight to our camera guy feeding him. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of our normal sponsors such as ECU Master, NK Wheels, BC Racing, Coilover, Spec Clutch, Valino Tires, GK Tech, and NRG. I think that's everybody. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. We're sitting in Zach's car. He doesn't know what's going on. I just had one more thought real quickly. I just realized there's a bunch of car hoarders, which I didn't think about before. Like take Zach, myself, and Adam LZ. Because cars are kind of cheap and we're a little bit older in life and can afford them and stuff, Zach has, what, 14 cars and you're collecting them?
I think I have 12.
Or 12?
But yeah, 12 is still a stupid number.
I have something like that too, a ton of race cars, and I'm kind of stockpiling them. Guys like Adam LZ probably have
like 25-ish.
25 cars, and he's collecting all these cars. Power Vehicles and Trenton and all these people are sucking up all the cars, and they're being competed for by a bunch of people all at once. We might just be all running up the market on accident like Bitcoin speculators.
It's a pump and dump scheme.
Yeah, it might be not even just a pump and dump scheme. Most of these cars, like the GTRs and everything else, are just they're being hidden in garages.
Yeah.
We're not even driving them or doing anything. They're just being stored. I know a lot of cars aren't even coming out of Japan. They're just sitting in storage there, hoping to be flipped. Okay. That was just one more thought to add to the video was there's a ton of us just sitting here holding the cars. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I bought mine because I don't know. Like,
how many Vipers do you have?
I have 2.
How many Supers do you have?
Just 1. But it's just a Mark III. Like I'm trying to, there's a Mark IV I'm trying to buy right now. But yeah, that's just an easy money. Not easy money, but like it's a no-brainer because it'll never go down in value.
Right.
My Mark III is not worth much because it's heavily modified. But
Chelsea DeNofa has 25 E36s at least. I'm not joking. All these people are collecting the cars and we're just storing them. I know of a bunch of people in the Pacific Northwest that have like a dozen E36s that are holding them.
Just waiting for them to pop? Or just because they love them?
All the above. They knew that they wouldn't be able to get them because prices were going up. They were stupid cheap for so long.
Yeah.
I bought like 10 E36 M3s because they were $4,000. And at $4,000, you're like, I'll just let this sit. Right. And then I would let it sit for 2 to 3 years and maybe drive it every once in a while and then be like, I don't need to pay insurance on this. And then I would sell it and then I would go, oh my God, I don't have 4 E36s lying around. And then I'd buy another.
It's a compulsion, I think, at a certain point, right? Because you know you can break even on it. Like you justify it so much more easily, and yeah, especially when you have some crazy. Yeah, when you have some discretionary income, $4 grand is not
a big deal.
Not the end of the world.
Especially because it's $4 grand, and you know you'll get $4 grand back out of it.
At least.
It's not a big deal,
right?
So all these cars were trained to think that we're going to get all of our money back out, so we have no fear buying these cars, especially even GTRs. Everybody knows that they're going to get their money back out, so there's no fear in it because there's no depreciation, so we have no problem holding on to them.
Right, imagine how many fewer cars you'd buy if the only way to buy a car was brand new. I would own like 2 cars.
Yeah.
Probably a car and a truck.
Absolutely, and we have too much space to store them. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks YouTube for ruining all this. Okay, bam.